Hello from Arizona. My name's Cal, and I want to welcome you to the Tough Trails DIY series. Let's get her going. All right, guys. So in this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to pull this engine. All right. There's some problems with this engine, and I'm concerned about it. So it's coming out. I've got a replacement for it, and we're going to put something else in here. But I realized that this episode was supposed to be about prepping for paint, and I was in rush to paint this thing. I really want to get this thing painted because that's represents like the halfway point when you got a vehicle painted. Then we just put it back together and add some custom features and things like that to it. But unfortunately, when we fired this thing up to make sure that that the fuel tank in the back and the fuel pump that we put in was going to work, I want to make sure all that was going to work. And remember what we had done, we had raised this and elevated this tank up in there, and we put a new fuel pump in there, refurbished the whole thing. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that everything was working. So I put a battery in it and fired it up, and it just had a knock in the bottom of that engine. And I remember when we had parked this, you know, some 8 years ago, it had a real bad exhaust leak. And I think what happened was that exhaust leak kind of muffled out the fact that there's a knock in the bottom of this engine. So because this vehicle right here, this project, this one is actually going to be sold. So this one right here, and I don't sell anything, but we're going to sell this one. So we're building this one a certain way, and that's just for to sell it. And I don't sell shit. So if I can't sell it with this engine in it. This engine is bad. I don't sell crap. I'm not going to put some engine honey in it or some thicker oil or some crap like that just to screw the next guy. I just don't do that. Sorry. Old fashioned. Sorry. I don't do that. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is we're going to start disconnecting, you know, electrical wires and hoses and vacuum lines and distributors and exhaust and intake and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to pull this radiator out and the shroud and the condenser and the grill and all this, and we're going to pull an engine today. Okay. All right, guys, stay tuned. Okay, if you can see up in here, lower control, or lower control. So if you can see up in here, this is your lower radiator hose. Okay, this has an automatic transmission in. Here's a cooler line and the cooler return line right up here. Okay, so those are all loose, and I'm about to pull those off. Okay, I'm going to put a little bolt in the end of each one of these transmission cooler lines, so they don't leak all over the place while this thing is down. Okay, and I'm going to drain because I had just put antifreeze in this thing. I'm going to drain the antifreeze out into a container, and maybe I can save it. If I can, I will. If not, then I just don't want it on the ground. I got a lot of animals around here and stuff. Okay, so that's what we did, and then we took the grill off. Okay, all right, moving on. All right, just so that we don't get too far behind. So you can see we pulled the support off, we pulled the fan off, we pulled the condenser off, we pulled the radiator out. You can see it there dripping. I got to get something underneath that. So, and this is just going to make it easier for me to pull this engine out. So next I'll take the plenum off and start removing these vacuum lines and fuel lines and electrical lines and that kind of stuff. And then we'll crawl up underneath it and deal with transmission bolts and torque converter and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I just wanted to catch you up and see where we're at and where we're going. Okay, all right, cool. Okay, so just to get you caught up here, we've removed the upper support frame support or body support right up here. That's gone. We got rid of we removed the electric fan for your condenser, and then we removed the condenser, and then we moved the radiator as well. Okay, then we got in here, removed the fan and the pulley that went on there. We disconnected the power steering pump. And the reason I didn't take that out, it's kind of a dumb reason, it's a personal reason, but I took a power steering unit out one time years ago, and when I put it back in, I could never, ever, ever completely stop it from leaking. So, as you know, that's my Eleanor. So I just did it this way, and it's going to be right there, and it's going to remain hooked up. This is a good one. It doesn't leak, nothing like that. Okay. And this is what we did here. As you can see up right under there, the exhaust is dropped down, and over here this is for your oxygen sensor. And then back here, this is the ground that goes here on the bottom of your distributor. So that's disconnected. I'm going to pull this with this exhaust manifold still on it. And then here on this harness right here, on this one single harness, is all these sensors and all these connections for these sensors that, you know, some engineer filed a patent on to make a different plastic clip that you have to figure out. Each one's like a little Rubik's Cube that you got to figure out how to get them. I'm sick of it. And normally what I do is I ended up just breaking them. So I can't figure them out. So fuel line has been disconnected. It's out of the way as well. And then your fuel return line is out of the way. And I found that it was only had one bolt in it back there. So I'm glad that I found that. And then down here on this side, we remove the starter. You can't really see it, but you don't see a starter because it's not there. And that starter only had one bolt in it. So, and then we disconnected your upper and lower radiator hoses as well. And then this goes to your brake power booster. We disconnected that as well. Up underneath the thing that you probably just saw or you're fixing to see is the torque converter bolts and then the bolts to hold the bell housing on. So at this point, where we're at right now is the only thing that's holding this engine in is it's pressed against the transmission bell housing, and it's sitting on the two lower bolts because those bolts stay in place. Those have nuts on them, where the upper mounts are actually bolts that come out, the two on the upper side, okay? And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just remove these mounts here, not the mount itself, but the frame mount right there from the frame on both sides. We'll get those out of there. And then I'm just going to lift this engine up and out of the way. But I'm by myself, so there's not going to be much footage of that. I cut me a piece of chain. It's going to connect, you know, right here and back here on this one right here as well. So I'm going to get this stuff out of the way. I don't want anything hanging up. So now up under here, barely see it, but there's actually a couple of wiring harnesses or connections, electrical connections up in there that I'm not going to be able to get out until I get this up in the air just a little bit, and then I'll try to disconnect those as well. Okay, but anyway, that's what's going on, and we're there. So if I can get somebody to hold the camera, you'll be able to see as I take it out. There's an engine hoist that it's playing Halloween. It's scared of the dark, so it's hiding. It thinks it's a ghost right there. So here's the parts that we've pulled out. You can see right there. Okay, so in fact, this whole pile is a parts, interior, under the engine, all that kind of stuff. I'm running out of room, guys. Running out of room. All right, guys, cool. All right, guys, here we go. So you see I got the grill back here and the bumper back here because I'm running out of room in the garage. So we're supposed to be prepping for paint, and I suppose we are prepping for paint in a way. But what we're going to do, and I had not planned on doing this, I did think in the back of my mind that I might have to do this because I do remember there was this small knock in the bottom of this engine, and but at the same time it had a terrible exhaust leak. So sometimes it was just hard to recognize. Sometimes you could hear it, sometimes you couldn't. But when we started it up this time, after we had done the work on it, and if you remember in the previous episodes, if you're following this build, you'll remember that we raised that fuel tank up. And we put a new fuel pump and rebuilt all the hoses and stuff like that on it. So I wanted to make sure that everything was working and I didn't screw up somewhere and make a mistake. I'm one of those people that usually has to do things twice. It's just the way it is. It's you know, it's built in my DNA or something. So and I didn't think I was going to have to pull the engine, but apparently I am. So the downside is I'm not painting, and you don't get to see a pretty painted, you know, Suzuki Sidekick or a project yet, or you don't, you know, get to see me mix paint or spray paint or whatever that, because we're going to do this with a paint gun in the driveway, outdoor paint job. But now I will be able to do, the positive side is I will be able to paint inside here. So, and I plan on doing this up under the hood, okay? But I'm going to leave this, and I'm going to leave these decals and these stickers and stuff. And I'm going to try to do this as a bang up job. Like I said earlier, this one we're going to sell. We're going to offer this one for sale when it's all done, and see what the market will hold for these nowadays. On Craigslist right now, usually you can find these out here in Arizona. You can get you a two-door for, you know, maybe a little bit over $6,500 if they pop up. and sometimes they don't pop up. I mean, you go months and months at a time looking for them. 'Cause I look every day. Every day I look, and like there's one in there right now with a blown engine, a 4-door. At the time of the filming of this, there's a 4-door in there, and the guy wants 3,100 with a blown engine for a 4-door. Okay, and then there's another one, a 2-door, that a guy wants, I think, 6,500 for a little 2-door. So, and they're selling, they're going, people are buying them, but I'm afraid this one's probably going to go closer to 10, or it's just not going to go. I'll keep it in the collection. I don't have to sell them. I've got 6 of these things, and I don't have to sell them. But I am getting older, and at one point, I am going to have to sell them. Okay, or leave my Suzuki collection to my heirs and let them fight over it, and that's not going to happen. Okay, so we'll let somebody take them out and use them and enjoy them. So anyway, the reason we're doing all this is because this one is for sale, and I don't like to sell something that comes back. So we're going to make sure that we got a good engine and good running gear in this thing. Okay, all right, guys, thank you. All right, guys, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but what you're looking at back in there is you're looking at the oil pan, and this drop light probably glaring you a little bit. There we go. And you're looking at an extension and a 14 millimeter socket on the torque converter bolts that go on the transmission and the flywheel right there. Okay, and I mean, they are on there. You have a very small window to get them, and this is what I had to do. So I ended up having to run, a couple of feet worth of extensions, and then at the end here I had a couple to put a 1/2 inch drive on it. And let me get out here so you can see. And then this end right here, you can see it. I had to use my big old 1/2 inch drive ratchet and a breaker bar, a BS breaker bar, and this bad boy wouldn't do it. Okay, so I wasn't going to throw this in, but there's actually really only a handful of us left that are actually, if you think about it, that are working on sidekicks and trackers and Vitars and stuff like that. So this may not be important to you, but if you ever get to this, this is one of the things that you're going to have to deal with as well. Okay? All right, anyway, that's what I had to do to get the torque converter bolts off. Now I got to rotate them and get the other ones off. Okay? I just wanted to show you that ridiculous shit we got to go through. All right, cool. You can hit record anytime you want, Mom. Okay, you can shut it off. All right, guys, so see this extension right here and my little impact. And what I'm doing is I'm removing the 3 bolts down there in the bottom, motor mount bolts. You can see them or not. I've got my cherry picker in place here. It's hooked up right here, holding the engine. And then underneath here, if you can see, I have a floor jack, and the floor jack's got a block of wood on the transmission pan, and I'm just holding it there. This is where it's going to remain while this engine is out. This floor jack just become part of this. I might jack it up and set it on a jack stand if I need it, but basically that's how I've got it set up right now. Okay, so this floor jack is going to help the transmission from following. It's also going to help unbind those 2 bottom studs from the back of the transmission bell housing to the engine and help me pull that engine out. Okay, so that's where we're at. That's my setup. Okay, before we get too far, I just want to give you a little of this. Okay, so we had to remove these right here, and there is a wiring harness that goes up underneath the intake manifold on this side, and it even includes your oil pressure sending unit, which is over here. If you can see it right there. And that's normally laced across the top of this with these clamps. And that goes out through the bottom, and then you pull it all out. As you can see here, I pulled it all out from underneath there. Okay, and I think we're just about it. You can see down there that we're well off the transmission, and we're up a good 6-8 inches above the transmission. Transmission is sitting on a floor jack and a block of wood up underneath there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crank it up now and just pull it out. I don't expect any problems with that, but I wanted you to be able to see that. So we're going to pull it up just enough to clear right here, and then we're going to walk it back out, taking a peek every now and then to make sure that I'm not messing up something I forgot or hanging up somewhere. Okay? All right, I just want to give you a little bit of that. All right, cool, guys. A little bit more. We are clear. There you go. Your engine's out, guys. Okay? All right, cool. All right, guys, so there's your engine out of there. Okay, and that's what it'll look like when you do yours, if that's what you end up doing, or you were just curious about what it looked like. There you go. And this is going to give me room to get up here and clean a little bit. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to get done, but I would really like to do a nice job so that the next owner will be kind of happy with it and be proud of it a little bit. So I'm going to try to do that. So we're going to detail this out a little bit in here and get it all cleaned up. And then I've got another block. I'll take a look at this block and I'll find the bad rod and see if I can save it, and if I can get the crank turned or something like that, and just get me some oversized bearings. I might just do that, put bearings and rings in it. But I don't know. This had a pretty bad knock in it. So normally when you get a bad knock like that, you spun a bearing, and when you spin a bearing and it knocks it like that, I mean, it doesn't take very long before it cuts so many grooves inside of your crank. And if they can't grind that out or turn it, that's the term, they can't turn it, 10 under, 20 under, 30 under, something like that, then it's pretty much shit. So I got another nice block, short block that I've been saving for something, and this might just be the right occasion. So, but anyway, I just wanted to show you that and kind of how you'd pull an engine. So anyway, so there you go, guys, and that should wrap up this video. So if this wasn't an intended video, but there you go. Okay, cool. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it and got some value out of it. These techniques and stuff that we're doing here, we're using geo-trackers and Suzuki sidekicks, but these same procedures and methods can be used on just about any other vehicle that may be out there. So we're just trying to give you some ideas. Take those ideas and you can go and experiment on your own projects with your own stuff, okay? We really appreciate you watching our programs, and thank you.